there was a group on this side, you can call them the left, or you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is. You had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Holy.
But we have to take steps to harden our schools so that they're less vulnerable to attack. This includes allowing well-trained and certified school personnel to carry concealed firearm. At some point, you need volume. But I really believe I'd run in there even if I didn't have a weapon. I would give myself an A+.
Try it now.
Oh my God.
They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
He pulled out a long gun and fired several times. Other church members right there shooting back. One victim was killed, another in critical condition.
Shooting at a crowded Walmart in El Paso, Texas, which left 20 dead and 26 injured. The 21-year-old gunman in police custody.
Oh,
And by the way, it was a gun-free zone. I will tell you, if you had a couple of the teachers or somebody with guns in that room, you would have been a hell of a lot better off.
Donald Trump is a man who ran for office to make his brand great, not to make our country great. He had no desire or intention to lead this nation.
What has the U.S., what has our president gone and done in the Middle East?
Well, it's hard to imagine how one could, in a single stroke, re-enable ISIS, allow this forest fire, which had almost been put out, to reflash, elevate Iran, a significant part of this, allow Vladimir Putin, the puppet master, to continue his upward trajectory, and simultaneously put war criminal, chemical weapon user Bashar al-Assad in the driver's seat in Syria. And yet that was the small hinge that a big door is swinging on. This is a geopolitical mistake of near epic proportion.
I am ashamed of my weakness and my misplaced loyalty, of the things I did for Mr. Trump in an effort to protect and promote him. I am ashamed that I chose to take part in concealing Mr. Trump's illicit acts rather than listening to my own conscience. I am ashamed because I know what Mr. Trump is. He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat.
David, good morning to you. Just a few minutes ago, President Trump firing right back at North Korea, this time on Twitter. Take a look at what he wrote. Kim Jong-un of North Korea, who is obviously a madman who doesn't mind starving or killing his people, will be tested like never before. This is.
I just think that we are now going to start the process of denuclearization of North Korea. And I believe that he's going back and will start it virtually immediately. And he's already indicated that. And you look at what he's done. So we got our hostages back, but they've blown up one of their sites, one of their testing sites, their primary testing site. In fact, some people say their only testing site. They're getting rid of a missile, which isn't in the document that was done afterwards. They're getting rid of a missile testing site. They're doing so much now. So it's a process, and it's really moving rapidly. They're getting rid of things that haven't been mentioned in the document. They're getting rid of certain missile areas, and they're not going to be sending missiles up. They're not doing research.
And they're going to announce that and confirm it as well, these additional steps?
You say it?
The North Koreans are going to announce these additional steps as well?
Yeah, they're going to be announcing them very shortly. They might have announced them already, but this came out after we signed. We agreed to that also. And I'm doing something that I've wanted to do from the beginning. We stopped playing those war games that cost us a fortune. You know, we're spending a fortune every number of months. We're doing war games with South Korea. And I said, what's this costing? We're flying planes in from Guam and we're bombing empty mountains for practice. And I said, I want to stop that, and I will stop that. And I think it's very provocative, especially, George, since we're getting along. In other words, we're in the process of signing something. Excuse me?
Did you talk about pulling troops out?
Mr. Trump brought me into his personal life and private dealings. Over time, I saw his true character revealed. Mr. Trump is an enigma. He is complicated, as am I. He is both good and bad, as do we all. But the bad far outweighs the good. And since taking office, he has become the worst version of himself. He is capable of behaving kindly, but he is not kind. He is capable of committing acts of generosity, but he is not generous. He is capable of being loyal, but he is fundamentally disloyal.
Mr. President, did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels? Then why did Michael Cohen make it if there was no truth or allegation?
Well, you have to ask Michael Cohen. Michael's my attorney, and you'll have to ask Michael.
Do you know where he got the money to make that payment?
No, I don't know.
I'm sorry, you ever set up a fund of money?
When she described spanking Donald Trump and how, like a little boy, he became more compliant after the spanking.
And I was like, someone should take that magazine and spank you with it. And I'll never forget the look on his face. And he was like,
what was the look?
Just, I don't think anyone's ever spoken to him like that, especially, you know, a young woman who looked like me. And I said, you know, give me that. And I just remember going, you wouldn't. Hand it over. And so he did. And I was like, turn around, drop him.
You told Donald Trump to turn around and take off his pants?
Yes.
And did he?
Yes. So he turned around and pulled his pants down a little. You know, he had underwear on and stuff, and I just gave him a couple swats.
New personal lawyer Rudy Giuliani describing what the president knew about a $130,000 payment to adult film actress Stormy Daniels to gain her silence days before the election about an alleged affair with Mr. Trump. That payment was arranged by Mr. Trump's self-described fixer, Michael Cohen. The night before, also on Fox, Giuliani said Mr. Trump personally repaid Cohen for the deal.
Funneled through law firm, and the president repaid it.
On Sunday, American authorities used tear gas on hundreds of migrants who tried to enter the U.S. illegally. The U.S. government also shut down the San Ysidro port for entry for several hours. Customs and Border Patrol said tear gas was used after several migrants threw rocks at border agents. NBC News reports the tear gas was fired mostly at adult men, but some of it hit women and children, as this already famous photo shows.
How did you feel when you saw the images of the women and children running from the tear gas?
Well, I do say, why are they there? I mean, I have to start off. First of all, the tear gas is a very minor form of the tear gas itself. It's very safe. The ones that were suffering to a certain extent were the people that were putting it out there.
If you violate the law, you subject yourself to prosecution. And I would cite you to the Apostle Paul and his clear and wise command in Romans 13 to obey the laws of the government, because God has ordained the government for his purposes. Orderly and lawful processes are good in themselves. Consistent, fair application of law is in itself a good and moral thing, and that protects the weak. It protects the lawful.
Let's listen to how she describes what she saw inside the facilities.
When they opened the door, the first thing that hit us was a smell, and it was a smell of sweat, urine, and feces. And I heard crinkling to my left, and I looked over there, and there was a sea of silver. And there were young children, boys in there, unaccompanied boys in there, and they had no expressions on their faces. There was no laughing, no joking, no talking. I describe them almost like dog cages, with people in each of them, and the silence were just hard to watch, hard to see.
Donald Trump is a man who ran for office to make his brand great, not to make our country great. He had no desire or intention to lead this nation, only to market himself and to build his wealth and power. Mr. Trump would often say this campaign was going to be the greatest infomercial in political history. He never expected to win the primary. He never expected to win the general election. The campaign, for him, was always a marketing opportunity.
Can you tell us what sort of progress you meant when you were referring to trade talks with China?
Well, I think we're doing very well. China's paying us tremendous tariffs. We're getting billions and billions of dollars of money pouring into the Treasury of the United States, which in history we've never gotten from China, as you know. It's been very unfair. I had a fantastic meeting with President Xi, who I both like and respect.
You ran your campaign promising supporters that Mexico is going to pay for the wall and that the wall was going to be made of concrete. You just said earlier that the wall could be made of steel, and right now our government is shut down over a demand from your administration that the American taxpayer pay for the wall. So how can you say you're not failing on that promise to your supporters?
Very nice question, so beautifully asked, even though I just answered it.
You didn't
answer. Look, let me just tell you,
excuse me,
are you ready? Are you ready? I just told you that we just made a trade deal, and we will take in billions and billions of dollars, far more than the cost of the wall. The wall is peanuts compared to what the value of this trade deal is to the United States. As far as concrete, I said I was going to build a wall. I never said, I'm going to build a concrete. I said I'm going to build a wall.
You said
just so you don't, because I know you're not into the construction business, you don't understand something.
Mr. Trump did not directly tell me to lie to Congress. That's not how he operates. In conversations we had during the campaign, at the same time I was actively negotiating in Russia for him, he would look me in the eye and tell me there's no Russian business, and then go on to lie to the American people by saying the same thing. In his way, he was telling me to lie.
Election meddling among the flashpoints that have helped sink U.S.-Russia relations. Others include Russia's illegal occupation of Crimea and its backing of a Syrian regime that used chemical weapons. But this morning, President Trump blaming tensions on the U.S. and the Mueller investigation. Tweeting, "Our relationship with Russia has never been worse thanks to many years of U.S. foolishness and stupidity. And now, the rigged witch hunt."
You know, it's very interesting. It's very interesting with President Obama. Going to go down as one of the worst presidents in the history of this country. He has been a disaster on the military. You look at we can't beat ISIS. He's been a disaster on health care because Obama's got to be repealed and replaced. I'll have a very good conversation with him. What I say to him is none of your business. Go ahead.
I wound up touting the Trump narrative for over a decade. That was my job. Always stay on message. Always defend. It monopolized my life. I knew early on in my work for Mr. Trump that he would direct me to lie to further his business interests. But in the mix, lying for Mr. Trump was normalized, and no one around him questioned it. In fairness, no one around him today questions it either. A lot of people have asked me about whether Mr. Trump knew about the release of the hacked documents, the Democratic National Committee emails, ahead of time. And the answer is yes.
Just now, President Putin denied having anything to do with the election interference in 2016. Every U.S. intelligence agency has concluded that Russia did. Who do you believe? Would you now, with the whole world watching, tell President Putin, would you denounce what happened in 2016, and would you warn him to never do it again?
They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be. I have confidence in both parties. What happened to the servers of the Pakistani gentleman that worked on the DNC? Where are those servers? They're missing. Where are they? What happened to Hillary Clinton's emails?
And the president complimenting an offer from Putin. Instead of turning over the indicted Russian agents, Russian officials would question the agents themselves.
One of the things you've said about Vladimir Putin, you said, I will tell you in terms of leadership, he's getting an A. Our president is not doing so well. And when referring to a comment that Putin made about you, I think he called you a brilliant leader, you said it's always a great honor to be so nicely complimented by a man so highly respected within his country and beyond.
Well, he does have an 82% approval rating, according to the different pollsters, who, by the way, some of them are based right here. Look.
He's also a guy who annexed Crimea, invaded Ukraine, supports Assad in Syria, supports Iran, is trying to undermine our influence in key regions of the world, and according to our intelligence community, probably is the main suspect for the hacking of the DNC computers.
Well, nobody knows that for a fact, but do you want me to start naming some of the things that President Obama does? Frankly, he's getting very high marks. And he's also been working with the United States. We have a great friendship as countries. I think we're right now as close as we have ever been. We've had a great relationship. This has been very successful.
He's a killer, though. Putin's a killer.
A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why, you think our country's so innocent?
I blindly followed his demands. My loyalty to Mr. Trump has cost me everything. My family's happiness, friendships, my law license, my company, my livelihood, my honor, my reputation, and soon my freedom. And I will not sit back, say nothing, and allow him to do the same to the country. Indeed, given my experience working for Mr. Trump, I fear that if he loses the election in 2020, that there will never be a peaceful transition of power. And this is why I agreed to appear before you today. And in closing, I'd like to say directly to the President, we honor our veterans even in the rain. You tell the truth even when it doesn't aggrandize you. You respect the law and our incredible law enforcement agents. You don't villainize them. You don't disparage generals, Gold Star families, prisoners of war, and other heroes who had the courage to fight for this country. You don't attack the media and those who question what you don't like or what you don't want them to say. And you take responsibility for your own dirty deeds. You don't use your power of your bully pulpit to destroy the credibility of those who speak out against you. You don't separate families from one another or demonize those looking to America for a better life. You don't vilify people based on the God they pray to, and you don't cuddle up to our adversaries at the expense of our allies. And finally, you don't shut down the government before Christmas and New Year's just to simply appease your base. This behavior is churlish, it denigrates the office of the president, and it's simply un-American. So to those who support the president and his rhetoric, as I once did, I pray the country doesn't make the same mistakes that I have made, or pay the heavy price that my family and I are paying. And I thank you very much for this additional time, Chairman.
Thank you very much.
How do you overcome that when someone like Senator Warren, Elizabeth Warren, literally says people are going to die because of President Trump's health care bill?
Well, I actually think she's a hopeless case. I call her Pocahontas, and that's an insult to Pocahontas.
Why don't you do more to bring the country together?
I think that if I was very different, I wouldn't have gotten what we had to get.